will be having so much fun. I will tear your unhaps apart.
Greetings viewers, Sardonyx here, and today we have a kind of a different style video than I have done in a while. These are the types of videos I did back when Spirit was releasing stuff last year, except without the face cam, but I decided this might be a good idea to implement into a bit of the video, and also I feel like my audio will sound better if I record it with the camera and not the editor that I use to edit videos. So anywho, today we will be talking about something kind of exciting, but nothing really too big about the season this year. Lowe's lineup. Lowe's is not a store I cover ever on the channel. I've never bought a Halloween prop from Lowe's. I've never covered a Halloween prop from Lowe's, and I've never really had interest in Lowe's. But this year, they have SVI props, and of course, since everything I own practically is an SVI prop, I was like, now this might be interesting, because SVI is good. And well, they did deliver with SVI stuff, but they also have a bunch of Party Time Jimmy stuff, which I will also be talking about in this video, which is another thing I don't talk about. Party Time and Jimmy are not a company that I really necessarily enjoy props-wise, but we'll see. Starting off, I'm just going to go from the start with my favorite prop that they have, and that's Stitches the Clown. He's this 8-foot clown. It kind of resembles, Hugs back here, but only a little bit in the face and kind of the hair. But his clothes are very, very, very cool compared to like Hugs here, because Hugs is mostly white, but Stitches here has a lot of purple in his color scheme. He has a purple collar, he has purple cuffs. Overall, he just has a lot more purple in his color scheme than Hugs did. And he also has a good secondary color with red, because Hugs has red on his nose, but Stitches has the red nose, red shoes, and I think that's it actually on his, but it's a good secondary color, because having it on the shoes is a pretty major secondary color, because the shoes are a big part of the prop. Not only that, but the purples he has on him are a lot more magenta compared to Hugs, and he does have this really nice, kind of faded purple for his lipstick, and it kind of reminds me of KG, because his lips are exposed, which SVI does this a lot. They don't really do closed lips, obviously, so the gums are exposed, and Stitches, not Nibbles. Stitches has, exposed gums with these really big teeth, and he has this really big jaw, and I just think it looks really cool. He has eyes, kind of like Sweet Dreams, Hugs, Grimsley, a couple of werewolves. They use these eyes quite a lot, but I'm really glad that they use them on Stitches here, because honestly they look really good on him. For some props, I think that they would have looked better without those eyes, because they do use them quite often, or did use them quite often, but on Stitches here, I think it looks quite nice. And I think the best thing about this prop, hands down, are the lines. These are probably some of the best clown lines I've heard in a while. So yeah, Stitches, I'd give a solid 8, 9 out of 10. I think he's honestly one of the best designed clowns I've seen in a while. Even though he's very similar to Hugs, like people are complaining about, but I think it's honestly kind of cool that we got another purple clown, even though he does look kind of similar to Hugs. I think people are over-exaggerating how similar he is to Hugs, because, sometimes we do get props that are kind of similar to other props, like KG, for example, is very similar to Pennywise, etc. It's just, whatever. The next prop I want to talk about, which is probably my third favorite that came out, third or second, I'm not quite sure, is the Big Head Reaper. And Big Head Reaper is a prop that I saw not last year, but 2020, when they released him in the UK, but they never actually did release him because he was cancelled. And he actually had the same look, but he had a different movement and different lines. Which the thing about this new Big Head Reaper is I do think that the old one had better movement and lines, because this new Big Head Reaper only moves its head, and it has more dark lines. In fact, it has different LEDs too. It has red LEDs while the original had orange, like this very kind of pale orange LED, which is really unique. And the other old one's lines were more kid-friendly. But the thing about that is that I think they were kid-friendly, but they were still really good. And he had this kind of like wind blowing in the background. This one has music, which I do like a lot. It's actually something I do prefer on this new one. I love when SVI props have these like orchestral kind of sounding musics, because another thing with the SVI props recently is that you'll see it on like the top hat skeleton, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. He has music too, and it just adds to the audio a lot. It could be a problem in like big displays, but just stand alone, it's really good. But he has darker lines now. His voice is way deeper. He doesn't turn side to side anymore, and his head movement seems to be programmed, unlike the original one, which had constant head movement. But overall, he's still very good. He still looks the same, which I think was like one of the main things I loved about that prop. I think this prop utilizes the big skeleton head a lot better than Catacomb Creature. Catacomb Creature is not a prop I like very much. I think I've made that very clear if you've ever talked to me on Discord or anything, or just talked to me about like Cuddles or any prop that is similar to Catacomb Creature. I don't like Catacomb Creature at all, and I'm glad that they're using the head in a much better way. Even though it's kind of not as good as the original Big Head Reaper, I still think it's very good, and not like here's the original Big Head Reaper, here's the new one. It's not far off, but it's still worse in my opinion. So, next prop I'm gonna cover is the top hat skeleton. I'm not sure I like this one as much, but not because it's bad, just because I don't like skeletons that much. I know I did say I like the Big Head Reaper, but that's like really rare that I like a Reaper prop or a skeleton prop, because Reapers and skeletons to me are kind of just, they can be good if they decide to, but I usually don't like them. Excuse me. And Top Hat Skeleton is one of those that is really good, but I'm just not digging him, because I just don't think I'd use him, but he's really good. He has a movement where he takes off his hat and puts it back on, which is probably something I wanted to see for a while on a prop. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to see it on. Maybe a zombie maybe taking off its hat or something. But a skeleton works too. And I love his lines. Like I said when I was talking about Big Head Reaper, he has music which adds to the I guess cinematic feel of the SVI stuff, because I feel like the SVI stuff having music adds this cinematic feel to it, because for example, Hugs back here, he has the drum roll before he jumps and shit, and the sound effect, and that's really cinematic. He has the clown music, and it's kind of similar with this one too. He has music, and also he actually interacts with things that are off screen, sort of like the man-eating plant last year, where he was talking about how he ate the neighbor's cat, and he was like, "Oh, there she is," when it meowed. The Top Hat Skeleton, he is talking about how finely dressed he is, and then he says he's dressed better than the Wolfman. You can hear growling in the audio, and then he's like, "Oh, no, never mind, you look great." It's pretty funny, and I do like when SVI does that. It's just really nice to see lines like that. I think SVI is honestly really good at making lines like that. And finally, I'm going to be talking about the Jimmy props. And the Jimmy props aren't too great, I'll be honest, as per usual. I'm only going to be talking about a select few of them because I have already been recording for 11 minutes. So, yeah, I'm not sure if the video will be 11 minutes, but, basically, the only one I like that much is, surprise, surprise, a clown. And it's this weird-looking clown that is green, which is not a color you see very often in clowns. And it also has a lollipop, which somehow looks better than the Uncle Charlie lollipop that came with Uncle Charlie in 2020. And frankly, the Mr. Happy lollipop that came with Mr. Happy. Not as good as the Mr. Moldy lollipop that came with the original Mr. Moldy, because that one had flies on it and a very, very nice paint job. But this one looks really good still. It's actually detachable, kind of like the original Uncle Charlie. But he looks really cool. The only problem I have is that the hair looks kind of gross. The way they did it is they put this black fade from the tips of the hair to the well, the bottom of the hair to the tip of the hair. I'm not quite sure why it looks so gross to me, but it just doesn't look that good. And the hair being spiky could have worked if they simply did it better, because you have props like KG, where his hair's like, you know, spiked up, and it looks really good. They don't come like that, obviously, but, you know, if you do style it how it's meant to, it does look quite good. But this, I'm not so sure. If I were to get this guy, I probably would trim the hair, and maybe make it just clown hair that comes down the sides. And his face overall is just kind of weird looking, but in like a kind of good way. It almost looks like a Killer Clowns prop. The only big issue I have with him is that he has Sunstar Clown audio, which is unfortunately kind of common with Jimmy clowns nowadays, because of course Jimmy owns the Sunstar Clown audio, so they use it on pretty much every clown they make. And then they have like the alternate Sunstar Clown audio where it's like the other set of lines that they overuse to shit. But he does have really good movement. He moves his mouth, he moves his head, he moves his arm. For 160, which is not bad at all, especially since he's a 5', 6 foot prop with pretty damn good looks. I'd have to say, like, the clothes look very high quality. They look almost satin to me. I could be wrong, but he's going to be in the stores, so I will be able to see him in person. So I'll, you know, maybe talk about that if I ever go to Lowe's for a Halloween tour. However, outside of the clown, I don't like the Jimmy stuff. There's this Hourglass Reaper, which is kind of cool, but I'm not really into it that much. There's a Witch, which kind of vaguely looks like SVI, but I've been told it's not, and I do think it's not SVI because it just doesn't really fit SVI. And there's also, like, the props where the head's, like, split up. I'm not a big fan of those either. It's just, like, these props look kind of weird. There's this Gravedigger that looks absolutely horrid. It has the most horrid phrases ever, like, Jesus, I think that might be the worst prop in the lineup by far. And then you have the horror licensed characters, which we've already seen before, just with slight upgrades, and they're not very good in my opinion either. That's why I've only talked about the 4 props that I've talked about, because those are probably the only good props of this lineup. This lineup is pretty mid, but since it's like the only lineup that is selling stuff right now, and Home Depot hasn't released what their props do, it's kind of like the only thing we have to talk about right now. I will be making a video on Home Depot when they release their props on the 15th. When I'm recording this, it is currently the 2nd of July. I'm not quite sure when I'll release the video. Just depends on when I feel like editing it. But that's really all I have to say. Sardonyx signing out. Make sure to subscribe. We're at like 422 subscribers, which is it's not like super close to 500, but hell, we can get halfway to 1,000, I think. So yeah, Sardonyx signing out.
Ha 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 ha!